Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. To do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Good morning, everyone. Last week, we discussed the concept of not voting and how we have got to separate ourselves totally from the system. I'm going to repeat myself for the benefit of those listeners that are first-time listeners. It is very difficult for us to comprehend the concept of not voting. You see, folks, you have to understand that politics and religion are one and the same. Politics is a religion. Religion is a politics, if you will. It really is the same. Therein lies a problem. Now, when I say they are the same, don't confuse it to real religion. I'm saying it's sort of a religious experience. Because in a religion, you believe. Now, obviously, you weren't there when these biblical facts took place. And regardless of what religion you belong to, I mean, Islamic, it makes no difference. I mean, you were not there. It is a very, very deep felt belief. And it could be very, very good, very satisfying to the individuals. And it saves many people's lives believing the way they do. It's important for people to believe, because without belief, they have very, very little hope. Unfortunately, is that when we apply that same principle to government, we get ourselves into real trouble. I mean, really think about it. When people talk about politics and they mention something, whether it be Republican or Democrat, are they giving you fact? No, they're giving you what they believe, what's been fed to them. Just like in a religion, you get a preacher, he says something, or a cleric or whatever, or a rabbi, and they say something, and you accept it. You accept it as a belief. You don't go home and say, Rabbi so-and-so said this. I'm going to do some research and see if that really existed, or if he interpreted that the way I believe it should have been interpreted. You don't do that. You take that for what it is worth. I mean, that's why you go to the synagogue, to the mosque, to the church, to your house of worship, basically, because it's a belief system. It's not a knowing system because it's a belief system. Now, many people will say, well, I know my religion is right because I feel it in my heart. And that is fine. I'm not disagreeing with that. And I think that's very healthy for most people. I'm saying, but when you apply that to government, you can really get yourself into a lot of hot water. Because what we are saying is that, well, this is what they told me. I don't know if it's true. I'm not going to look into it. I'm just going to believe it. That's it. It's true. It's a fact. And once we go there, government owns and controls your life. Now, are governments good? The general answer is no, they are not. Now, at times when you have local governments, very, very local governments, working hand in glove with the citizens on a particular problem, that may work. And it's even difficult under those circumstances. Supplying water to a certain part of town becomes very political. And you find that the water gets there, but the way it gets there, you prefer not to know. I mean, it's not done very efficiently. It's unfortunate. One of my sons is a manager at a waterworks, and I won't tell you where it is or anything like that, but waterworks. He's an engineer. Actually, he's a chemical engineer, and he gets involved in engineering, how water goes where and whatever, And it's very highly political how water gets from one place to the other and how they have to justify it. And once you start believing that the political structure is in fact correct all the time, I can tell you one thing: people won't get water. If they do, it's not going to be very clean. They have to fight all the time to make certain that the water gets to the people in the most expeditious manner, and it's safe. Now, folks, this is very important for you to know, because if once you accept government, especially the federal government, and it gets worse as you go up. The state government is very bad. Look at the corruption in state government. We have all this corruption going on. Then they come out with an edict and we say, well, the government said. And we talk as if it's a religion, like as if God said. This is a problem. And especially in Oklahoma. Now I'm from New York City. Many people in New York City don't believe in anything. I'm telling you, hey, forget about it. We don't believe in anything. Don't give me that crap, But in Oklahoma, we have deeper felt beliefs. We have more respect for authority than any other place I've ever lived. And that could be extremely dangerous. Because once you give someone power over the people, and they profess some sort of edict, and people believe it, ball game is over. See, politics is a religion. That's when people say, well, the Democrats, da-da-da-da-da. Or, let's take the situation we have right now with taxing the rich. The rich got to pay their fair share, right? And if you ask them, you say, fine, can you show me on paper, pencil and paper, why they're not paying their fair share? They couldn't do it. Now, quite frankly, I don't know if they're paying their fair share. All I know is whenever I make some good money, and sometimes I lose money, when I make good money, I get taxed up to kazoo. I don't know who's getting, I'm not getting away with it, that's for sure. And I can't tell you how many times in those times, it's usually in monthly or quarterly increments, where business is good and I make a lot of money. The first thing that comes to my mind is, oh boy, am I going to get hit with taxes? And I always do. And at the end of the year, my accountant says, well, you're $29,000, $29,000 short. You got to da-da-da-da-da-da. It is amazing. I don't know where. Now, I'm not rich. I would imagine the rich are getting hit even heavier. But when I ask the people, fine. They say, I would agree with you. If they're not paying their fair share, they should. Now, show me on pencil and paper what they are not paying. They can't do it. Tell me how they are cheating the system. They can't do it. What they do is they just repeat the mantra that they hear on television. Now, folks, let's hear from you. 855-866-1170. 855-866-1170. Send us your email to comments@libertytalkradio.com. We're live this morning. I'd love to take some calls. Now, and it's pervasive. It's in everything that we do. The government owns the radio stations in a way, because we have to get the station has to get a federal license. So they're sort of, under the guise of the government. I mean, they don't own the people here or anything like that, or tell the people what to do. But there's always that oversee, always that sight that government is looking down on you. And you always have to be a little bit careful. You can say this, but you got to say it in this manner because we run down that road. The newspapers are the same way. Look at the television programs. They're owned by large corporations that rely on government contracts for their existence. General Electric, that owns one of the major networks. I mean, without government contracts, General Electric would be toast in 30 days, would close down. No one would be working there. You think they're going to say something about Congress, about pork barrel projects, about military? Absolutely not. They're going to either be silent or they're going to be promoters. And then what we do, because we've become so engrossed in watching television and thinking that television is the place where we find out everything about life. Everything. You want to raise your kids? Turn on the TV. You want to be a bartender? You can learn that. Turn on. There's a station on TV, I'm sure, that'll teach you how to be a bartender. Anything you want in this life. You're having problems with your wife? No problem. There's some psychiatrist or psychologist on TV. He'll tell you how to get along with your wife. TV is the answer to everything. It's not. You know it. I know it. And it's painful to admit. Because it's easy. We turn on the TV, and the first thing that happens when we turn on the TV is we turn off our minds. And when we turn off our minds and we accept what we hear and see, politics becomes a religion. You ask anyone, they say, the Democrats will say about the Republicans, well, they're for the rich folks. You say, please explain that to me. They can't. What do you think they're doing? They're just reiterating what they're hearing. I'll give you, I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and we were talking about the wars in the Middle East. We're at the coffee shop. And he's a heck of a nice guy. We didn't argue, believe it or not. This could have been an argument, but it wasn't. And he said, but, bottom line, he said, Joe, he said, I support our troops. I said, what do you mean by that? He says, no matter what, I support our troops. And of course, that's one of those sayings that got out there. We don't know how, and you see it on all the cars, support your troops, support our troops, or whatever the saying is. I said, I don't understand what you mean by that. I said, let's assume for a second. Let's assume that you knew you were a government insider and decided to invade a country, had no beef with us at all. We had nothing against them, but they had something we wanted, and we trumped up this phony war, this phony reason why we had to occupy them. Went there and killed, as a result of sending troops there, thousands of innocent men, women, and especially young children were killed from drone bombing, from all that stuff. I said, would you support the troops that are there? He said, Joe, I support our troops. And he got angry. He says, but I support our troops. And I said, the reason why I'm broaching that subject the way I am is because we're using the wrong words. I should say, do you support the actions that our troops are taking? And he said, no. I said, that's my point. You see, they throw sayings out at us, like that old saying, they say, go to a guy and say, by the way, do you enjoy beating your wife? There's a presumption of guilt, obviously. The guy says yes or no. He's dead in the water. And support our troops is the same as saying, do you enjoy beating your wife? There's only one answer. Or there's no answer at all. So I'm saying we have to start thinking beyond what we see and what we hear and what we're told. And that it is not, like I said last week, it is not the Republicans versus the Democrats. It is them against us. Once we accept the fact that a political party is doing something correctly and we support it, we get sucked in. Look at those conventions with the delegates. Peter Schiff did a great job. He went around speaking to the delegates, asking them silly questions. And, they were dumb answers. Every one answer was dumb. These people just want to feel like they're important. They're part of the political process. They're there, and maybe they have a good time all week, and they cheer and stuff like that. They don't accomplish anything. At all. But what they do is they add credence to the system. They say, well, look at all those people. My neighbors are there. It must be real. It must be true. It's something that I really should support. I support my neighbors. I support our troops. When the fact is that, of course, you're going to support your troops. You're going to support all. You don't want anyone to die. What you say, if I ask, do you support the men and women that we're bombing? Do you support them? The innocent? Do you say no? You say, well, yes, I do. Well, you got a problem. Folks, we have to realize that it's time to stop talking and it's time to start acting. And the only way we can start is by divorcing ourselves from the system altogether. Now, you're not going to go in a cave, dig a hole 20 feet in the ground. I don't mean that. I mean psychologically. Once you realize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution, once you realize that, you will start taking it back. And this program is just about that. I get asked all the time, how come you don't talk about issues? I go, but the issues are immaterial. We know I say this 1,000 times. I must have said this on radio. You know, it's like having a talk show about organized crime. Why talk about the issues? You want to talk about how many people they killed that week, how many people with extortion, how much drugs they bought? I mean, you know they do it. Why talk about it? It's the time to act. This should not be Liberty Talk Radio. This really should be Liberty Action Radio. And you should be part of that action. You know, this is how much it grabs me. Let's hear from you. Come on, folks. No one's called in yet. I know it's early in the morning. 855-866-1170. 855-866-1170. Break in at any time. I know I'm absolutely fascinating, and you'd hate to break in, but do so anyway. Send your email to comments@libertytalkradio.com. Right before we got on the air, there was an advertisement. It said, you know, if you are heavily in debt for over $10,000, call this firm, and we can fix your debt problem. Well, guess who should call? Not you, not me. Guess what? The federal government. I mean, the audacity for companies to help people get out of debt to a country that has the highest debt in the world. I mean, once we start thinking that way, unfortunately, you'll probably drive yourself mad. I mean, you'll have a tough time thinking. You'll go walking around like that, you know, they'll probably lock you up. But once you really start thinking, truly thinking, you'll have a problem. But then you'll know you're on the road. Uh-oh, we got a couple of callers here. Who are we taking? Uh-oh, we have a problem here? Hold on, folks. All right. Oh, geez, we're lined up with calls. Great, all right. Let's see. Caller, you're on the air. Oh.
Obama, why don't you get somebody that's intelligent?
Hello, caller.
Yes, sir.
Okay, your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Greg. I'm a truck driver here in Texas.
Okay.
I'm a veteran, too. My question is, if these Democrats really wanted to win, why didn't they pick somebody that's intelligent? Why are they in love with Obama? This is an idolatry. Why don't they, Hillary Clinton or somebody, why don't they get somebody, you know, like this vice president should run a casino someplace? They need somebody. Why are they sticking with this guy?
Well, your name is, let's see. Your name is, what is your name again? Hello? We lost you. Greg? All right, Greg. All righty. We have a line of calls here. Now, who's blinking, who's not? I'm sorry. See, because it doesn't make any difference. To them, this person, Obama, is the one that appeals to the masses. And this is what they're doing. If I say just sketch out a person that will be universal in an election, who would you pick? Would you pick a short, overweight, blonde guy with blue eyes? No, you wouldn't. You say, no, that characteristic just wouldn't work in America. Nothing wrong with short, overweight, blonde guys. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying from a visual point of view, there's no way that person would be attractive on television to people. You would pick a person who is, you know, of the right age, who is not too light, not too dark, thin, has a great smile, good speaking voice, you know, he's got the whole mix. He is perfect. Obama is perfect. He's a perfect front man. But it doesn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference who they pick. And it makes no difference who wins, whether it's Democrat or Republican. Absolutely no difference whatsoever. Okay, I think we have Paul. Paul, you're on the line. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio. Paul? Paul, turn your radio off, Paul. Paul, turn your radio off.
Hello?
Hello, Paul. Turn your radio off, if you would, please.
Okay, sorry.
That's
I just
okay.
think that people ought to be responsible for their own actions. And if it goes on down from the government people ought to be, you know, they should have consequences for their actions. If they do something wrong, they should be held accountable for it. If they do something right, then they should be able to reap the rewards on it and not feel any guilt about it or anything else.
Yeah, but didn't you hear the president say that you're not You're not responsible for your own success?
Yeah, look who's talking.
Well, you see what I mean? You're absolutely correct. But people have to take those words and convert them into action. They actually have to do it. You know, it's easy to talk about things like that, but it's very, very easy to slip into, well, you know, this is an exception. You're absolutely correct. But once you say that, you truly divorce yourself from the entire system, which is really good. I mean, political system.
But you work it into everyday life.
Absolutely.
If I want something, if my kids need something, I work overtime, then that's how I'm going to get paid for it. If somebody does something wrong, like kicking a door in their house in Tulsa, they should have a speedy trial, and they should have to be held responsible for their actions.
You're absolutely correct. Do you believe that we have a political system where they select for you a candidate of your choice?
I know that I choose the lesser of the two evils.
Okay.
But I think they have a paradigm of what they're looking for.
Okay,
and
Paul.
I think that the media has way too much control of people's minds.
Okay, Paul. Thanks for calling in, and thank you for your thoughts. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for listening to Liberty Talk Radio. You know, and there's something that's very interesting. Again, we say the lesser of two evils. You know, when you're voting for the lesser of two evils, who are you voting for? May I suggest evil? And then you say, well, you know, it was the lesser of two evils. We had to vote. No, once you vote, folks, once you do so, right, you become subject to the system. You're saying, well, you voted for them, thus, no matter what they do, you okayed that. You see, and when the government says, well, vote for the candidate of your choice, and you look at the two people, Romney, Obama, and you go, oh, my God, oh, OMG, you know, let's see, are they both candidates of your choice? Do you have a choice? It's not like going to a restaurant and they're saying, well, would you like lobster tails or crab or shrimp? And you say, well, I got a choice. I love all three of them. Let's see which one I like. No, they're giving you rancid food and rancid food. They say, which rancid food would you like? This is probably a little bit more rancid than this one. This would kill you. This probably will kill you. Which one would you like? And then you pick one of the foods, and then you get sick or die. They go, well, you picked the food. I mean, it's insane. The whole thing is insane. I don't understand our thinking, but I understand why we think that way. Okay, we're going to have a hard break right now. Stay with us, okay? We'll be right back. I'll give you an example. The debates that we see on television and hear on the radio, do you actually think that these candidates actually just show up and then they debate? Have news for you. Before the debate, all the people who make the decisions about the debates, all the people of both parties get together and they hammer out the rules of engagement. And that is typically what will not be discussed. That's why debates are so indecisive. And people say, instead of saying, well, oh, he's in line with the Constitution, he's not in line with the Constitution, he's anti-us, the reason why they do that is you leave it said, well, it seemed like Romney was a little bit more forceful this time, and he seemed to have done a little bit better. You ever hear that? You hear that garbage? He was a little bit more forceful. Or, Obama stuttered. He stuttered on that answer, and he used this grammatical aberration. So to me, it seemed that maybe he wasn't sure. That's all they leave us with. But it's intentional. It's hammered out. So you never, ever, ever get a true debate. See, and once you vote for one of those two clowns, right, you have bought into the system. And then you better live with that system. I don't want to live with that system anymore. After our break, we're going to talk a little bit about how to divorce yourself from the system. After we talk about one day that's not very popular these days, Constitution Day. Let's get back. Let's go to this break. Folks, we're back, and we're going to take a caller. John, you're on the air.
Hey, thank you for taking the call.
Thank you for calling.
Okay, you had sort of challenged at the first of your program to tell you something or show you something in writing that says that the rich are not paying their fair share. Well,
Please do.
I have a glaring example, and by the way, I'm a right-winger.
Okay.
You know, so this is going to sound more like a left-winger.
Okay.
Okay, in writing, it's ssa-custhelp.ssa.gov, Social Security, in other words. Okay, and here's the writing. For 2012, the maximum taxable earnings amount for Social Security, OASDI, whatever that means, taxes is $110,100.
Correct.
There is no limitation on taxable earnings for Medicare hospital insurance taxes. Okay, now what we're hearing a whole lot of here lately is millionaires and billionaires not paying their fair share. This is the only portion of this that somewhat gripes me. The fact that no matter how many millions they make or billions they make, they still only have to pay roughly $110,000 of maximum taxes, and this of course is probably one of the most crying needs that we have is to finance Social Security. You know, because it's going broke because we're feeding too many deadbeats.
Right.
We're feeding too many people that never work, will not work, don't have to work, and they know their vote is bought with our money. But that still is a big, significant difference because many of these people would be paying into the millions on this. Now, do you disagree with that?
Oh, no, John, you're right on. I mean, it just speaks to the idiocy of the entire system. I'm one. I'm going to be 70 years old soon, but in my mind, I'm 15. I will never be 16. It's too old. 16-year-olds always bothered me. They got too responsible, you know? And yet, I've had some serious medical issues, and boy, did I build the system. I mean, my medical bills were astronomical. And I may be going in for some big operation soon, and it's going to cost big time. Now, the thing is that I didn't set up that system. I didn't lobby. Who set up that system? The people we voted for. You see how it's rotten on both ends. It's no matter which way you look at it, either the poor or the rich get something for nothing, or rich or everybody else, if you want to call them rich and everyone else, right? But the thing is, who's the one that designed it? Well, our Congress didn't design it, our president didn't design it, our senators didn't design it. It was the corporatocracy. It was the corporations that paid off the people that we voted for. These paid-for bums in office that were bought out by large corporations saying, hey, you know, I'll give you this $500,000, but what we need is this, this, and that. They vote the stuff in. These corporations make tons of money. Medical care, instead of goes up tenfold, it's tenfold higher than it should be, right? Everybody loses. Who gains? The corporation and the people in government. You and I, at the end, lose. Because although I'm getting free care, this country is going to go bankrupt, and I'm going with them. But I agree with you 100%. Absolutely 100%. But that speaks to the whole system, John.
Yeah, well, you have some good points there, but, you know, not necessarily that I agree on everything that you said, but as I said, some of those are good points, but I think this points out the weakness in democracy. Democracy is a very poor form of government, and we're getting closer and closer to it. We're going from a republic to a democracy, and I will tell you how well that worked over in, I can't remember what country it was in the Mideast, or little importance what the country was. It was Yemen or one of those.
Oh, no, I agree. Democracy, if you have a plain democracy, right. Because
and Al-Qaeda runs the show.
Right. Well, remember, we finance Al-Qaeda also. John, thank you very much for calling. We have some other calls. We have to get them on the app. Thank you for calling Liberty Talk Radio. Certainly appreciate it. Hope you've listened in. And if anyone who calls in, if they want a T-shirt, just send me your email to comments@libertytalkradio.com with a mailing address and a T-shirt size, and we'll get one out to you for calling this early in the morning. Good morning, Mark.
Yeah, they've got a way around your idea of not voting.
Great.
Because if absolutely nobody goes and votes, the Electoral College is going to put one of those two clowns in office.
Oh, maybe. I don't know what happened,
don't
Mark.
make it about it.
But you make a good point. I don't know. Let's assume that 3 people showed up to vote. You know, Obama's wife, his mother, or somebody else, and a good friend of his. And the same thing with Romney. All right, let's assume they got very, very few, not 3, but let's say they got 30,000 votes each or something like that rather than millions. I mean, that would send an incredibly strong message. These guys will have to go back to their back rooms and say, we're in deep trouble. The next step are going to be riots in the street. What do we do? I mean, it's going to force them to do something.
If you want to change a law, you can go into what Panama has. If you fail to vote, you go to jail for 2 years.
Oh, yeah, that's really terrific, isn't it? You give me a choice between, Hitler and Stalin in office, right? And if I don't vote for Hitler or Stalin, I'll go to jail. There's my problem. You see, no, believe me, I want to vote. And the only time, I'll be very candid with you, I tell my listeners exactly what I do. I don't give them any fluff. The only time that I vote is if I really know there's someone who is worthy of the office. For example, I was registered as an independent, and I transferred over to a Republican. So I can vote in the primaries for Ron Paul, because Ron Paul was a libertarian constitutionalist. And I said, we need someone like that in office. I felt certain that he would be the best. He would not be a compromise. I would not be compromising if I voted for him. All right? Now, that was my view. Right? Now, but once you take that away from me, which they did, now I'm registered as an independent again.
Yeah, I can't blame you there.
You see, and I will vote, but if there's something like a bond issue, where they should have done what they did, should have done what they said they were going to do, they didn't, and now they're floating another bond, putting me further in debt, and I just go and I vote no. I'm like Ron Paul. I'm voter no. Dr. No, and I'm voter no. Okay. Thank you very much, Mark, for calling in. Appreciate your listening to Liberty Talk Radio. You want a Liberty Talk Radio T-shirt? You just send me your email. Send me an email with your address and T-shirt signed and send one in the mail to you. I just dropped them. I pressed the wrong button. Would you please call back? I think it was, I forgot the name. Do you remember the name of the fellow who called? What was the name of the fellow? Jim, I just dropped you. I'm awfully sorry. Could you just call back? I pressed the wrong button. That's what happens to me at my old age. I press wrong buttons, I guess. And hopefully I'm pressing everyone's button today, this morning, so it'll drive you into action. Well, we talked about Constitution Day, and isn't that interesting? How often do you think our schools even mention the Constitution? How much time do you think is spent discussing the Constitution? Well, let me give you an answer. It's not. Because if they discuss the Constitution and the kids had even any thoughts left, which they probably don't because they've been driven not to think but to memorize, right? And whatever the teacher says is gospel, because if they don't take it, they'll fail the test and they won't get out of school, blah, 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 right? But if you're asked to think critically and you study the Constitution, oh boy, the ball game is over. The ball game is over for the federal government right at the school level. But since the schools are operated and owned and controlled by the government, monetarily, they ain't going to talk Constitution. They'll say, oh yeah, the Constitution was signed, blah, 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 and they'll go on to something else. And quite frankly, I hate to say this, I'm going to get a lot of nasty mail on this, is that the teachers are unqualified to discuss the Constitution, from my perspective, because I do speak to them about it, and when I do, they don't know what they're talking. They don't, because they've never been schooled in it. All right, here's our call back. Jim, is that you on the air?
Yes. Good morning, Joe. How you doing?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm sorry I hung up on you before.
That's all right. I'll forgive you. Hey, just a quick comment to your last caller, John. If unless I'm mistaken, of course, he addressed a couple of issues. No one's going to convince me that we have a unfair tax system that favors the rich. I believe if my statistics are correct, the top 10% wage earners pay 70% of the nation's income tax. The bottom 50% of the people in this country from an income level pay essentially zero tax. So don't tell me that the wealthy don't pay their fair share. Also, Social Security, as you know, is an animal in and of itself. It's
Right.
It's supposedly a government-sponsored retirement program, which is nothing other than a big Ponzi scheme, as they've used that money for whatever other expenditures the government has had. And his comment that, if I'm not mistaken, he said that your Social Security tax tops out at an income level of $110,000. So I don't know details of the Social Security program, but my guess is that the Social Security payments also cap out at that $110,000. So a billionaire who then retires and then begins, if they receive Social Security, will only it'll cap out at that income level of 110. If would be my supposition.
Well, not only that, but it's taxable, so you get taxed on it. Right, and then once you get taxed on it, you don't get the full amount. The problem we have is that we're talking apples and oranges. In one case, we're saying you're correct that the top wage earners pay a good portion of all the taxes. The lower wage earners pay practically nothing, and that's a fact. You know, and what the exact numbers are is immaterial. Right, but Jim, why don't you hold on? We have to stop for a break, okay?
Sure.
And stay with us. All right, here we go. Jim, are you still there? Jim, are you still there? Jim?
Yes.
Oh, you're still there. Jim, what I wanted to say about the way we talk about the rich not paying their fair share and whatever, it all depends on what action you're taking. If, in fact, the criminals in Congress enact a law that say that or legislation that allows taxes on capital gains to be 15%, the rich aren't doing anything wrong if they're paying only 15%. I mean, they're not doing anything wrong. If they say, well, you can deduct this, this, and that, and the rich deduct this, this, and that, they're not doing anything wrong. So it's wrong on all ends. Now, it does seem, it's counterintuitive. Once you start making some real big money, you're going to have to cough up more money. That's a disincentive. Now, I'm not saying it should be unfair. I think the only way, Jim, in order for us to have a fair tax system is to get the IRS the heck out of our lives. And to do this, we need what they call the fair tax, which is a tax on purchases, sales tax. Consumption tax, right. And what they do, it's very simple. Items like food, for example, and clothing or whatever, certain items are exempt from that tax. So if you are a low-income person, you're not paying the tax. But if you go out and buy yourself a Lexus SUV, which I'd love to have, which I don't own, but you will pay that 23% tax. So that becomes fair for everyone and gives everyone an incentive. Right? You're not going to stay poor just because you're not paying tax on food, because no one will be paying tax on food. See, even the rich, because they can't script. So we need something like that. The IRS has designed it to pit you against me, and as long as you and I are arguing with one another, we will let the real culprit out of the equation, and that's the federal government. There's our problem.
Yes, and of course also, and Joe, obviously the whole other program on taxes and Social Security and related issues. But Romney's can't stand the guy, but his 14% tax rate is like you said, primarily driven by capital gains, which was money invested that was from income that was probably already taxed, once before.
Right, that is correct. And once you start driving taxes up on the rich, you're going to see a recession like you've never seen before, because the rich will take that money and invest it overseas immediately. And then they're going to have regulations saying you can't do that. In other words, the government's going to restrict until they're going to say, give us all your money. We'll let you know how much money you can have. Thanks a lot, Jim, for calling Liberty Talk Radio. Appreciate it. Don't forget the T-shirt, okay?
Hey, and Joe, if I could end, Will Rogers in 1925 said, "Party politics is the most narrow-minded occupation in the world." And he tried to warn us nearly a century ago what you're telling about these two clowns running for president and the banter between the parties, and he was way ahead of his time. So
Right.
enjoy your show, Joe. Thank
you.
so much.
Don't vote. Thank you. It just goes without saying that we have a system. Everyone is frustrated. We have the Occupy movement. We have the Tea Party movement. And people say, Joe, why don't you talk issues? I can't talk issues because they're all the same. One issue is the same as the other. Why could, just think, if I was on the air for 10 years, of what value would it be today of me talking about an issue 10 years ago if it doesn't change anything? I want change. I want people to start taking action. I want to change the mentality of America so that we start looking toward government, we look toward ourselves and away from government. Once we start doing that, issues don't matter because those issues are not government issues. They're my issues. I want to handle them. Let's see. We have another guy on phone. We got Jim. Jim, you're on the air.
Hello, how are you doing this morning?
Okay, Jim, we got 2 Jims in a row. That's good. That's an all-time first. What you got?
Well, in reference to that fair tax, something that wasn't mentioned was, all your black market stuff, your dope, your illegals, everybody that goes out and buys something, they now pay taxes. That's money that would never be seen otherwise.
You're absolutely correct.
They would be lost.
Yep, you're absolutely correct.
Right. There's so many other avenues that would benefit us.
That's right. And no matter what, whenever you start taxing something heavily, you'll find ways of getting around it.
Exactly.
And I agree with you. But
right, the biggest downfall with them is where they see they will lose power.
That's right.
And that's going to be the hardest part to get this thing passed.
Okay, Jim, I want you to be. I got to get off the air right now. We're almost closing in. And remember, I want you to be a revolutionary in thought and dissident in action, okay?
Hoorah.
All right. Thank you so much, Jim. Okay, folks. Wow. All right. This is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for their financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. Folks, you can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends and let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Remember, you are either allowing your liberties to be taken away or you're striving to protect them. Unfortunately, folks, there is no middle ground. With that, until next time, I'm Joe Cristiano. This is Liberty Talk Radio. Stay well. Stay tuned.